Good evening, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I am Councillor Mohammed Ayub, Chair of Traffic Management Subcommittee. I would like to welcome you all to tonight's meeting with councillors are now required to attend in person following the expiry of Coronavirus Act regulation, which permits online meeting. We will be now using equipment connecting to the chamber in Microsoft Teams meeting. There is a live stream available throughout Teams, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the council website afterwards. Before we start the formal meeting this evening, I would like to ask everyone to stand for a minute silence in memory of Her Majesty, the Queen, who has passed away on September the 8th. Thank you. Be seated, everyone. Our thoughts and prayer are with the royal family for their lost, and we'll continue the rest of the meeting. Thank you. The first item I have on the agenda tonight is a declaration of interest. Any councillors? No. I would like to make a declaration on the bus lane, the first petition we have, and I will be asking our Vice Chair of Traffic Management Subcommittee to step in on that. So, and I'm sorry, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got a declaration of interest, page 129, Appendix 2, weight and restrictions for next review. I live in one of the streets that's up for the review, so that's it really. Just declaring that Whitley Ward. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor. As I was saying, I will ask my Vice Chair to step in for that item when we come to that one. So I'll continue with the next is minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 15th of June. Can I take those to be correct? Right. And we have next item we have is questions from member of public and councillors. We have no questions from member of public, but we have two questions from Councillor White. Right. The first question is regarding vehicle charging trial update. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. This question's on electric vehicle charging trial update. Allowing residents in terraced streets with no driveways to charge electric cars is important for tackling pollution and cutting carbon emissions. Please can the Labour lead councillor confirm the date the trial for charging electric vehicles using cable protectors or channels in the pavement was first approved by the Strategic Environment Planning and Transport Committee? And what date was the first licence issued on, and how many licences in total has been issued?
Thank you, Councillor White. Can I ask Councillor Tony Page, the lead member of Climate Strategy and Transport, to respond on my behalf?
Thank you, Chair, and I thank Councillor White for his question. As Councillor White is well aware, in November 2020, the Council adopted the Reading Climate Change Strategy, which focuses on reducing Reading's carbon footprint and associated transport emissions by encouraging walking, cycling, public transport and a move to electric vehicles. As part of this strategy, the Council declared a climate emergency and has set an ambitious target of net zero carbon emissions by 2030. Reading has also declared an air quality management area based on the exceedance of the air quality objective for nitrogen dioxide. The Council has improved its own vehicle fleet and, where possible, is opting to replace vehicles with electric vehicles and source green energy supplies. We're also encouraging private vehicle owners to move from higher polluting petrol and diesel vehicles to electric vehicles, which will contribute towards some of the ambitions of the Reading Climate Change Strategy. We recognise that the move to electric vehicles will result in the need to charge electric and hybrid vehicles on the public highway, and we've already installed 15 lamp columns and 6 other public 22 kilowatt electric vehicle charge points borough-wide. Additional sites will be installed as funding opportunities materialise, and we will bid for any central government funds to assist this process, as well as exploring potential partnership opportunities with the private sector. We also recognise that suitable on-the-street electric vehicle charging points are not always available due to the nature of Reading's urban environment. As colleagues know only too well, Reading has a very high number of narrow terrace streets with minimal or no off-street parking, where residents have no alternative but to charge their electric vehicles from their property whilst it's parked on the public highway. In March 2021, the SEPT committee approved a trial whereby residents can apply for a free licence to legally and safely charge electric vehicles parked on the public highway. To date, we've had 55 inquiries and the first licence has now been signed, with 3 further licences awaiting signature by the applicant. It is understandable that the take-up has been low, as a number of residents have voiced their concerns about the difficulties in securing a dedicated parking space near or outside their property. This issue is further complicated within our existing residents' parking zones and requires advice and guidance from national government so that the existing traffic regulation orders can be appropriately amended. This problem impacts all local authorities with resident parking schemes, and there are no obvious and immediate solutions. Due to the low take-up to date and concerns from residents about being able to secure the parking space outside or near to their property, we are extending the trial period for at least another year. We'll keep this under review and will continue to offer a free licence to residents who would like to take up the offer. Securing a dedicated parking space was not included within the original trial, but clearly this issue has national ramifications, as all councils are grappling with how residents can legally secure what is public highway for their own use whilst charging an electric vehicle. We will continue to encourage residents to take up this free licence offer so that when they can park in front of their property, they can legally recharge their vehicle across the public highway. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor White, do you have a supplementary regarding to this point?
Yes, please, Chair. Thank you. So to summarise, permission was given, or the permission was given by the Council Committee in March 2021, and only 1 licence has been issued, which may be to my constituent who's been very keen to get a licence for the last year or so. My understanding as to why he hasn't been able to get a licence is because the legal agreement has only in the last month or so been finalised by the Council. So I suspect that take-up will be reasonable now that they can actually be taken up. Can the lead councillor confirm that the licence has only been available to be signed within the last month?
Councillor Page?
Chair, if Councillor White cares to do me the courtesy of expecting me to know the full circumstances about an individual licence, and I'm afraid I'm not in that position. If he wants to write to me in the normal fashion, I'm quite happy to investigate the situation. The information is as set out in this answer.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Right, moving on to question 2, which is from Councillor White. Tackling engine idling and pollution. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Unnecessary engine idling is polluting our roads and worsening health problems. Please can the Labour lead councillor update me on recent work to tackle engine idling, in particular how many fines for engine idling have been issued each year for the last 3 years?
Chair, I thank Councillor White for his question. Unfortunately, and he and his colleagues have been told this umpteen times, the current national legislation in respect of vehicle idling is weak, requiring officers to first ask drivers to turn off their engines. Only if the driver refuses can a fixed penalty notice be issued. The practical implication of this is that drivers can idle with impunity, provided they then turn their engine off when asked. This also increases the obvious need for regular patrols by enforcement officers to speak to the drivers of idling vehicles for which there is currently no resource. Idling is part of a broader issue, and we are presently bidding for funding via DEFRA's Air Quality Grant to carry out a wider air quality awareness raising and behaviour change campaign. This includes vehicle idling and other educational initiatives to improve knowledge and decision making, promote mode change and active travel. This is an action included in the draft Air Quality Action Plan, awaiting final approval, and is something that will be pursued when funding becomes available. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor White, do you have a supplementary?
No, thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to petitions, and the first one is private use of bus lanes, which I will be moving from Chair and ask the Chair to step in, please, on my behalf. I'll read the.
I can stay here, but. Yeah, as Councillor Mohammed just said, that the petition, the first petition is on private hire vehicle use of Kings Road and Duke Street bus lanes. Do we have somebody that's proposing this? So are you both intending to speak? Okay, that's fine. Then, so you've got 5 minutes to speak. Yeah, I was just going to. So yeah, if you want to come up to the microphone.
Good evening. Today's petition is regarding an application for the usage of the bus lane, the A329 Kings Road outbound, and the Duke Street access onto London Street inbound, outbound in Reading. We are here kindly to request the usage of these following bus lanes as stated above. I myself, and likewise most of the private hire drivers in Reading, have been driving in Reading for many years. Over the years, the traffic situation in Reading has got from bad to worse. Day by day, it's making our job very difficult and very challenging, especially in the peak times when the roads are so busy and so congested. We often get very, very late to dropping off our passengers to their required destinations. On several occasions, we have clients who need to get to the airport in the mornings. We are always stuck in traffic, which is on the A329 going outbound towards the M4 motorway. It would be very, if we were granted access to use this bus lane, it would help us in a very logistical way. As you in the past have been very kind to us to access us the inbound access to Kings Road Reading bus lane a few years back, in which there have been barely any complaints of misuse or any abusive usage of the bus lane. It was given to us on a trial period. We all stuck by the rules, the regulations. It was very rarely, hardly been misused in a way that it would put or jeopardize our position moving forward to request any more access for any more bus lanes in the future. As the same goes for Duke Street bus lane to Duke Street access into London Street. When we're trying to escort our passengers to their destinations, it would save us a great amount of time, especially in today's day and age with the cost of living crisis going on. Unfortunately, when we're stuck in traffic, it's increasing the fares of the customers. Considering, you know, with the cost of crisis living going on and with the fuel hike prices going up, just shot through the roof, we are trying to keep, you know, our businesses in line, our customers in line, trying to protect as much of their, you know, financial interest as possible so they could still afford to carry on using our services. In the meantime, we have still seen, witnessed, there's other members of West Berkshire Council, South Oxfordshire, who are still using the outbound bus lane of the A329, where we are getting complaints from our customers asking why are we not allowed to use the bus lanes going outside of the A329 towards the M4. And at the meantime, you know, with unfortunately, the more we are stuck in traffic, the pollution is increasing, which again is going to be affecting, you know, the air, which we are trying to reduce. If we were kindly granted this, we would like to make as much contributions on this matter. A few years back, when we were given access for the A329 bus lane coming into Reading, it was given on a trial period, and obviously we kept by the rules, hence why it's been extended, and that now that has been given to us on a permanent basis with signs up saying for Hackney carriage buses and private hire vehicles only. At the same time, we've also stuck by to make sure that we do not haggle up the bus lanes because of obviously main reason of use is for the buses. We do not want to be stopping them, you know, doing their transport of escorting their passengers from start to end of their beginning as well, which in line, we've never had any complaints with the Ministry of Transport when we've spoken to the bus drivers and everything, you know, they're more than happy and stuff, hence why, which has brought us to this position today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the purpose of this sort of petition process is to hear the petitions. It's not really to proceed to a discussion at this point. So we've received your petition, and this applies to the other two that we will receive after this. Then officers can assess what you're requesting, which you've obviously added to, and we would then have further sort of questions later on once this comes back. So this then will come back to this committee at a later date once officers have had a chance to basically, you know, just go over what you're saying and then put forward some proposals, and then that will apply to the Kendrick and the Kidmore Road petitions as well. So thank you. I mean, so if there is a question at this point, bear in mind that we're just sort of receiving the petition though. So Councillor White.
I just wanted to ask a process question because I wasn't planning to speak on this one. I'm happy for it to go forward, but I was planning to speak on one of the other ones. And it's my understanding that it's a report and councillors can speak on the report. So yeah, I'm just registering. I'd like to speak on one of these before we fly through the ones.
I mean, you can speak on it, but it was really to deter a discussion without the full information.
Sure, that's
particularly as the petitions sort of differ in the amount of detail and whether they've been discussed before, I think.
Also, I'd just like to add, we recently been doing quite a bit of research in regards to other counties, other councils who have been given access to private hire trade in their cities, and the likes of Oxford, Slough, Southampton. These big cities have been giving access. They've been doing trial periods for their private hires to be having access to the bus lanes to be used. The biggest one that stands out the most recently is the Portsmouth City Council. They have actually issued out 5 bus lanes, which have been approved on a 6-month trial period for their private hire.
So would you be able to submit this as further evidence?
Yes,
to
of
the
course we
committee
can. So,
then?
yeah,
Because
we've got the evidence here. We will submit it to you ASAP.
that'd be great.
And also, like I said, you know, they've asked for 5 bus lanes. They've given to their private hire trade. We have only asked for 2.
Yeah, okay. So if you can add that to, if you can email in what you've just said, then
Sure.
then we'll consider it. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
that.
Thank you.
So would somebody, do we move, I assume somebody can go and get Mohammed now? Yeah, so, well, I propose it. So if we can propose that we've agreed to review the petition. Yeah, sorry, we agree the recommended actions.
The next petition we have. Thank you. The next petition we have is residence parking permit eligibility for Kendrick Court. We have a speaker.
Yeah, he's just here.
Right. Good evening, Mr. Hammond. You have 5 minutes to speak on this, and could you just state your name and who you are?
Thank you. My name is Edward Hammond. I'm a director at Kendrick Court. Firstly, thank you for an opportunity to speak in support of this petition. You probably will have seen from my emails that we believe that the reasons for rejecting it, as the recommendation to reject it at the moment, need to be sort of reconsidered or reviewed. And we also think that there needs to be sort of more information about the context, for our application. We start looking at Kendrick Court's specific issues. Currently, there are about 25.7 million cars in private ownership in the UK. In the time when Kendrick Court was being planned, there were only 750,000. Now, clearly, the planners and the developers at that time there didn't expect the growth, and as a result, they didn't plan for it. And we are now stuck with this particular problem. What can Kendrick Court do to sort out its own problem? Actually, not a lot, because we can't put concrete over our front lawn. First of all, because we're a conservation area, that isn't going to happen. The other thing is that our leases specifically preclude people from parking on the site unless they own a garage. To get around that, I actually bought the freehold for the driveway and the garages and parking area. And the other thing, we then demolished one of the garages, the largest garage there, to try and make more space. But even then, we still haven't been able to create anything like what we actually need to meet the needs of 20 flats. There really isn't a great deal more that Kendrick Court can do for itself. If we zoom out from there, we start looking at the zone itself, 10R, which Kendrick Court and Kendrick Road are. It's massive, absolutely massive. In fact, it takes 5 pages of map to actually show just the extent of this thing. When it was introduced, there was a concern that because it was new, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a concern that we might actually have oversaturation. So the control that was put in place was to deny all blocks of flats, regardless of how much parking space they had, the right to park curbside. That was in 2017. Okay, the uncertainty is now gone, the risk is now gone, yet this control is still being applied. As a result, what we've got is 12% of space in this massive zone is still unused. Now that must be hundreds of parking spaces. If you want to see what wasted parking space looks like, take a look at Kendrick Road several times a day. You'll see that it's largely empty. In fact, it's so empty that because our residents aren't using the space, that was actually given over to use by the NHS. But the reason there's so much space there is because the residents aren't allowed to get a parking space. What we are allowed to do, and as described in the report, is we are allowed to apply for a discretionary permit. How many applicants have actually had one of these permits approved in the last 6 years? I can tell you of one, and that was granted to a woman who lives by herself with a disabled child. 1 in 6 years. So put yourself in the situation of a Kendrick Court resident who needs parking. You submit an application, which you know is going to get turned down. You then have to submit a begging letter, which you know has also got almost zero chance of being approved. And then you look out the front and you see there's a whole street there with no parking in it, with parking spaces not being used, loads of them. And despite that, you've been turned down, and as a result, you're now going to have to pay £125 or more to park your car behind one of the blocks further down the road that was created decades after Kendrick Court, when everybody expected and planned for car parking. That's the situation we're in. Of course, it feels grossly unfair.
Thank you, sir. The time's up. Just stay there, sir. We might have for a minute. Councillor Page, you indicated.
Chair, I just wanted to propose, rather than debate the issue, I know officers have made a recommendation here, but I would propose that we defer a decision to allow further consideration. Mr. Hammond took the trouble of reading the report and then writing to us. I haven't had sufficient time to consider all the points that were made in his email. He's referred to some other points this evening. I think it's only fair that we should return to this issue on the basis of considering some of the other points that Mr. Hammond has made. So I would propose that we, as Councillor Yeo intimated earlier, bring this back to the next committee so that officers can either amend or add to the report that's before us this evening, and then we can take a decision on this at our meeting in November. That would be my proposal, Chair, to make business. Doesn't obviously prevent Councillor White making some comments, but hopefully that will assist the subcommittee.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor White?
Thank you, Chair. I do support the inclusion of Kendrick Court into the permit parking scheme. But if the choice is voting against it tonight or deferring it so councillors can consider it further, I would support it being considered further. It reminded me of the Oakland scheme, which is mentioned in the report, where we didn't have an ideal resolution, but I think residents are happy and that they've not been jumping up and down and complaining. So if we could get to the same situation with Kendrick Court, I think that would be really positive, because as has been outlined, the situation at the moment is unfair. So yeah, I'm happy to support deferring it so councillors have got more time to consider things.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor, you.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly, from our point of view, I think the petitioners make some very valid observations. There clearly is a degree of support behind what they're asking for, and it would appear that there are historical disparities here that are leading to a degree of discrimination now, which does appear unfair, particularly in the present economic climate. So if this had been going to a vote tonight, we would have supported inclusion in the scheme. But I agree with Councillor Page, a deferral for further consideration is the best course of action for now. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Yep, just to remind the rest of you, obviously all these petitions do come in as a chair, and there's further works needs to be done to it, and then we can have a debate as well. And also Mr. Hammond will get a chance to speak as well in future as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Hammond, for coming in this evening.
Thank you all.
And you may take a seat if you want to stay for the rest of the meeting. If you want to wish to leave, you can do so. All right. Right. Do we have a name on this? Because I didn't get any paper. Right, the next petition we have is for Kidmore Road, trees and traffic. Sedan Winchester, please take a seat.
Good evening. I'll just start by reading our petition. We are writing as a group of Kidmore Road residents residing at the southernmost end of the road, from Oakley Road Crossroads to the junction of the Mount. We represent the residents of 54 households. We are aware of discussions and activities involving RBC regarding both the trees on our section of Kidmore Road and various traffic issues, including volume of traffic, speeding and unreported accidents. We are also aware, of course, of Matt Rodder's consultation regarding traffic on Kidmore Road. We as residents would like to ensure that we are informed of and consulted on any discussions regarding Kidmore Road, particularly any discussions which might result in some action taking place which affects our neighbourhood. We would also like some mechanism to put forward proposals of our own, and would welcome a discussion with councillors Matt Rodder and or RBC as to how best to go about this. As a group of residents, we are united in the below concerns. We are strongly in favour of retaining the trees. We are concerned about the volume of traffic. We are concerned about the manner of driving. We are concerned about the state of the single pavement. The 54 households who signed the letter are from the stretch of Kidmore Road from number 1 to number 68. We therefore feel we have a large majority of households. Taking each of our concerns in turn, we are strongly in favour of retaining the trees. The trees are an essential part of the character of the road. They date back to at least 1908. Mature trees are far better for the environment than new saplings. These trees also bear the scars of decades of accidents. Vehicles go too fast for the bends and leave the road. Before they can mount the pavement, they hit a tree. So the trees serve a protective function to pedestrians by providing a solid barrier between the pavement and a dangerous section of road. We are concerned about the volume of traffic. The southernmost stretch of Kidmore Road is effectively a country lane with blind bends, narrow lanes and only one pavement. However, it is carrying a large volume of non-residential traffic. One of the problems is rat runners avoiding the Church Road lights and the St. Peter's Hill queues. We are concerned about the manner of driving. Matt Rodder surveyed Caversham residents regarding speeding and dangerous driving, the results of which have been passed to the committee. Kidmore Road was identified as by far the road of most concern by wider Caversham residents, cited by 47% of the respondents. Matt Rodder also kindly broke down the results for Kidmore Road respondents. which has also been passed to the committee. The majority of Kidmore Road respondents witness daily speeding on Kidmore Road. They feel the road is unsafe to cross. They feel the road is unsafe for cyclists. 98% of Kidmore Road respondents are in favour of some sort of traffic calming. Speeding. Our stretch of Kidmore Road has a unique set of challenges. Blind bends, narrow lanes, single pavement, and pedestrians and vulnerable pavement users stepping out into the road due to the pavement issues. We feel that vehicles are travelling too fast for these unique conditions. Many residents report that the speed of traffic makes it dangerous to both cross the road and dangerous to exit their driveways. Unreported accidents. Most residents have witnessed accidents on our road, but these accidents mainly go unreported. This is because the accidents follow the same pattern. The vehicle goes too fast for the bends, it leaves the road and it hits a tree. The injured third party is always a tree, so no report is made. Were it not for the tree, the vehicle would be on the pavement. A recent example is where a large coach crashed into the tree outside 2B in April, shattering one of its windows and depositing a large amount of shattered glass across the road. Imagine if that coach had mounted the pavement. We're concerned about the state of the single pavement. Most of our stretch has only one pavement. This has to accommodate both the trees and the pedestrians. The pavement is in a poor state of repair and is extremely uneven in places, especially around the trees. This causes issues for pedestrians with mobility issues who have to step out into the road. The available gap by some of the larger trees is too small for certain pavement users, such as parents with buggies and wheelchair users. They also have to move out of the road to pass the tree. Many residents are parents or who have mobility issues and are using the road rather than the pavement for their day-to-day walking. To reiterate, the residents are passionately and almost universally in favour of retaining the trees, despite the challenges. The problem is not the trees, the problem is the cars. In summary, the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan identifies Kidmore Road as a designated primary walking route and orbital cycling road. But currently, Kidmore Road is unwelcoming to pedestrians, unwelcoming to parents with buggies, unwelcoming to wheelchair users, unwelcoming to people with mobility issues, and unwelcoming to cyclists. We do, however, welcome cars and lorries, which currently have to make no adjustment for the particular challenges of our stretch of road. The residents have lots of ideas for simple ways we might be able to better accommodate all users of our road, whilst ensuring the trees survive another 100 years or more. We would like the opportunity to develop proposals, work with the council and put them to this committee.
Thank you. You indicated, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for bringing this petition. I represent a large part of Kidmore Road. The state of the pavement, I have raised with council officers down your end of the trees. Yes, it's in the process of being repaired, but I fully understand the position you're saying with regard to wheelchair users, to young parents with young babies in buggies. Speeding.
The repairs can't unfortunately deal with the undulations.
With regard to speeding, it was an issue that arose to me prior to the lockdowns. I was in the process of setting up some speed watch events. Unfortunately, lockdown stopped those. The rules have now changed, but I'm in the process of trying to get some set up again. The route running, I'm very much in favour of protecting the trees. I'm more than happy to work with you and officers to
Councillor,
make it a lot better.
This is not a this is not a debate, as I said earlier on. We take the concerns aboard, and the officers will do work, and the ward councillors are here as well, and yourself could. This will give you opportunity to come back later on and speak on those items. You know, so I did allow you if there was a specific point you wanted to point out.
Thank you, Chairman, and if I can speak with you after the item, I'll happily. Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Councillor Matteo, you want to speak whilst you're...
Hi, yeah. I'm, along with Jacobo, also one of your councillors, because the boundary is in fact the road itself, and we also would be happy to work on this. I mean, it's going to have to be all 6 councillors plus officers, I think, to come to some sort of agreeable situation. And of course, the residents who I've read the petition, I've read Matt Rodder's petition and the results and spoken to him about it. I think, you know, there's plenty that we can do, certainly that we can look at. I walk along it regularly, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, thank you, sir, for coming in. As you know, your ward councillors, everyone coming in for a report, and also I can assure you every councillor on this committee has a letter from Matt Rodder regarding this. So thank you. We will do the work on this and get in touch with you further. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks very much.
Swiftly moving on to the next item is item 5, digital parking permit. Officer Helens, could you just get a brief update? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Brilliant. So yeah, this is the report on the digital parking permit TRO consultation that went out during August. This is to allow officers to carry out a trial using digital parking permits in one of the zones for residents parking to see if this is a system that will work well for Reading. Sorry, this is my first TM sub that I've done with you, so I'm just getting the idea of how much I need to say and how much you've read. How much do you want me to talk, Chair?
Well, I just want a brief introduction, just to remind. I'm sure all the committee members have read this, so just a brief highlighting the points. Yeah.
Okay. So it's something that's gone out to consultation so that the traffic regulation order can be amended should it be approved through this committee to allow permits to be used not displayed in cars but purely digital. So residents will still apply in the same way that they always have online, but instead of us then posting them a permit, they will receive an email telling them that their permit is now active, and that will go straight to the civil enforcement officer's handheld device. So no waiting for transfer of permits, much quicker, much better for the environment. So we're not sending out lots of pieces of paper, but something obviously we're looking to trial at this stage.
Thank you. Councillor Page, you indicated.
Yes, Chair. Can I thank Helen for the brief introduction? I think we've all read the report. We've also been familiar with a lot of the background. Firstly, I'd like to say I'm very gratified at the level of public engagement with the trial. I think we selected the right area. The consultation was not an ideal time of the year. Namely, it straddled holiday periods, but nonetheless, we got a good cross-section of responses. I don't think, speaking personally, there were any surprises. I think the point to emphasise to colleagues is that we are proceeding cautiously because anything involving IT is something that needs to be treated cautiously, and particularly old Luddites such as myself take a bit more convincing than some of you youngsters. But nonetheless, there are clearly benefits to be had that members of the public have identified, but there are also clearly issues that we need to ensure don't deprive less literate, less IT versed members of the public from the service that we are offering. And it's therefore important that in proceeding with the trial, we monitor this closely. And whilst we, in principle, are committed to a wider expansion, we will treat this trial very seriously. We will evaluate the comments and the experience, and we will build on the lessons learned locally as well as those in other authorities that have made the transition. And I would make the point that in the work that I did with colleagues in scoping out, we met with other authorities, and one clear message from those authorities was that they felt they would have benefited from the sort of trial that we are now embarked upon rather than the big bang that they introduced. Some of them have smaller schemes altogether. But we've had residence parking schemes now since 1976, so we have a well-established set of parking schemes, well supported by local residents, and in transitioning to any online digital scheme, we want to maintain the confidence and support of local residents in our residence parking scheme. So I shall say no more, Chair, than support and move formally the recommendations and look forward to further feedback. But I know other colleagues want to have a word as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor Barnett-Ward.
Thank you, Chair. I have had a certain amount of correspondence with Thames residents outside of the response we've got here. I know the Caversham Ward councillors have as well, and I'm really grateful to residents for taking the time to look at this really carefully and flag some issues that for us to consider before going into the pilot, but also to look at as we go through the pilot. I wanted to just touch briefly on the amount of hours, because it is a little bit confusing if you have assumed that a half day before was 12 hours, which isn't actually the case. You could use it for 6 hours, or you could use it from 2 p.m. in the afternoon all the way through overnight. So we have seen some concerns here in the neither support or oppose, that people are worried that they're getting fewer hours overall, which obviously we wouldn't want to happen. But in fact, what I understand, I'm just going to check with officers, that to get an overnight booking, you need to have booked at least the last hour before 8 p.m. and the first hour after 8 a.m. the next day, and then you will automatically get an overnight allocation added to that booking. So it's not that that there aren't any controls overnight, which I know are some concerns. You get that allocation, but it's added on. So I just wanted to check that with officers. And then also to flag a comment here as well, asking about reminders for if their permit time is about to run out, which I think is a really good comment. When we use Ringo in Reading, I use Ringo, it comes up on your phone to tell you need to rebook. So that would be good to look at if that's something that we are offering or could offer. And also to reinforce what Councillor Page has said, is that the ward councillors will be watching this very carefully, as I know the entire committee will be. There are clear benefits to residents to a more flexible system, which is why we're trialling this, but it has got to be an improvement on what we currently have. And that's what we will hopefully find out through this pilot. It's got to be something that works for residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett-Ward. Does Officer want to comment on that? Or
Yeah, so to clarify the nighttime parking, we did have to really carefully think about how this worked, because as you say, the half day allocation wasn't exactly half a day. So what we're doing is almost what you said. So the hours between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. don't count towards the allocated hours, because at the moment, that's how it kind of works when you look at it. So those vehicles still have to be booked in, though. It is not a free-for-all by any stretch of the imaginations. Those cars are booked in through the system, and all it'll be, so if you imagine that someone, say, has got 240 hours allowance, if somebody parked at 7 p.m. and left at 9 a.m, they'd actually only use 2 hours of that allowance, and the 12 hours overnight are not deducted. It's really difficult to get that across on a web page. So we're doing what we can to update the FAQs so that it becomes clearer to people. And interesting, the more I'm asked the question by different people, the easier it becomes to explain it. So if there are any further questions, please do email them through, and I'll do what I can to respond to those. The question of reminders. We are talking about this with our software provider. You're absolutely right. The likes of Ringo send those reminders. What I would say at this stage, Ringo and other apps such as that are set up to do exactly that. We currently have a permit system that isn't. That doesn't mean we can't, it just means we need to talk it through. What I would say to reassure everybody though, is that we are on the cusp of going out for a new software system. So what we can be doing at that point in the spec is saying exactly what we want. And actually, if reminders is something that we want, that will be part of that procurement exercise. So potentially not through the trial, but absolutely, if this is rolled out, we can make that a thing that we do.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, you indicated.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm very pleased to see this trial is going well so far. I'm very, very supportive of it as a concern for what we would like to go forward with. And I'm very pleased to hear what Councillor Page had to say about make sure we're looking at this really properly. And I'm also pleased to hear about potentially procuring a new software solution, which leads me to the point I want to make about objections. Under item 4.21, one of the main reasons for objecting were perceived lack of enforcement action. I did bring this up when we originally considered this pilot. I appreciate the maintained level of enforcement officers patrolling is a good thing. I think it's still going to be rather opaque how residents can see whether a car is parked legally, though. I think that is one of the things you lack from moving away from a paper-based system. And it has been suggested before that we might want to look at a system like they have on the gov.uk site, where you can look whether a car is appropriately taxed or MOT'd. And I think it'd be really good if residents can go on and type in a car registration and just get a simple yes or no, this car has an active permit. With no GDPR concerns, no PII data, no identification of anyone. I think that's something I would certainly like to see, because I think that would really help people be able to check things rather than thinking people are just parking illegally when there's no way to know whether someone's parked legally or not with nothing in the window. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Helen, do you want to cover that, or do you want to take those aboard?
I take all that on board. We have looked very carefully into the potential to supply a lookup system, and the data protection advice that we've had is that we can't do that. We'll continue to investigate. Know that it's something that is actually, if you look at the next bullet point down on from where you've just read in 4.21, actually there is a concern from people that their information will be available and they don't want it available. So there are two sides to that coin that we need to really, really carefully consider. The other point to make on that as well is displaying a permit doesn't mean that permit is valid. So what we do know is that there are permits out there that have been tampered with. There are people out there that will do what they can to make it look like they've got a valid permit by tucking it down behind the dashboard and so on and so forth, and it completely removes that element. So I get it, I understand the concerns, and throughout the period of trial, we will have that public feedback. And what I'd like to be able to sense is whether people are confident enough that our enforcement actually is good enough. And we do have a facility for people to report vehicles that they feel are illegally parked, and they can send that in and we will respond in that way.
Thank you. That's next indication I have was from Councillor Matt.
Yeah, well, actually, my comments have pretty much been covered by, I'd like to echo Councillor Page and Barnett Ward. I'd say I agree with Councillor Moore as well that the same thing occurred to me, was that how are residents going to be able to determine whether a car's illegally parked, basically. And I think just a further comment that pilots do help iron out some of these problems. So as a ward councillor, we'll be paying sort of close attention to this to see how it goes.
Thank you, everyone. I see no more indications, so can we agree to the recommended action on 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, The committee agrees? Right, thank you. Right, item 6, we have waiting restriction review, objection, waiting restriction review on 2022A, and also request for waiting restriction on review on 2022B as well. So we start off A.
Thank you, Chair. So as you've introduced, we've got a two-part report. So the first part of the report is on the results of the statutory consultation on the 2022A programme of schemes that we consulted. So this follows receiving agreement in June. Unusually, as just to explain the appendix, we've had objection that is to all proposals. So the entire traffic regulation order. So whereas normally the agreements that we received, that we received at the last meeting would enable us to proceed with those schemes where we didn't receive feedback, this is all schemes being brought back for a decision as a result. So those figures have been included on each specific item. However, it's getting more complicated the more I try and explain this, I think. So we've got the all proposals. So those where we've had non-specific objections are at the top of the appendix. Those where we have received specific feedback are thereafter and include those additional bits of feedback. I hope that's clear enough. Apologies. Part two, moving swiftly on, is the list of requests for inclusion in the 2022B programme, and included in Appendix 3 and referred to in those requests is the results of some survey work that Councillor Hacker has kindly provided to officers around residents of Belmont and, forgive me, Belmont Connaught Road, around resident permit parking restrictions and some potential changes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So we move to Appendix 1. The first one we have is an Abbey Road Bridge Street taxi lane extension. I think Ward Council, we agreed with that one. Yeah. So I'm sure everybody's read through this, so I'm going to keep it nice and short. The next one is Caversham High cannot close. Request for restriction on junction St. Peters Road.
We can just ask him.
Yeah. Anybody got objections? Yeah, we're easier. Yeah.
On the two Caversham Heights ones, Chairman, there's no objection at all. Happy to support the officer recommendations.
I don't have
Any indications which I missed?
Don't have any objections to this one either.
Okay. On Church, you don't have any objections for those. So I'll read out the word. Emma Green, Tulsa Avenue. Any objections, Councillor?
No objections at all. Happy to support.
Okay, thank you. Next one we have Norco and Tarless D Road. Good, all good for that? No objections for that? And Redlands up again, Upper Redlands Road. No, I think everybody's happy with that. Southcote, Harsgood Avenue. Councillor Ennis.
Well, I'm just getting my formal words together. Period of negotiation, very fierce. The Circuit Lane one first. We're taking that one first.
No, this is page 64.
Okay.
We're on Harsgood Avenue, Southcote.
Oh yeah, carry on.
Yeah, you're okay with that one? Yeah, agreed. Okay.
I'm waiting for my big moment.
Okay, fine. Thank you, councillors. Tireless, next have is Dunstable Close and Pool. Are we okay with this?
Yeah, TAL has council support that. Thank you.
Tireless gets no objections. Support for that. Yeah. All right. So get to the. Then we're on to. Sorry, just lost a bit of paper there. Right, we're on to Caversham Amersham Road.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. And support for that. And then Branch Avenue corner, Branch Avenue review on a bay. Okay with that one?
I agree with that.
Yeah. Chiltern Road, I think
Yeah, we had a comment on that. Yeah, so we had a comment on that, which was that there were a number of objections, and one of the specific suggestions as a compromise is to reduce the 10 metres to 6 instead for the double yellow lines on both sort of parts of the road. We wondered whether that was possible to do that or would we have to withdraw the entire thing?
No, thank you. It's a good question. I mean, is it possible? Yes, it is. It's not the officer recommendation. So I understand that they've exampled another scheme. The road does bend slightly away from the junction, which is why we've recommended the highway code 10 metres. So that would still be the officer recommendation.
The only thing I would add to that is that it is it's a very small road. So it's likely that most of the road is objecting, or they're okay with it, but they'd like it to not be quite as large as it.
No, sorry, just to confirm, it is a decision the subcommittee can make. If you wish to reduce it, the recommendation from officers would be to retain the 10 metres.
Councillor Page, so did you indicate?
I was wanting clarity as to whether the reduction is solely in Banbury Gardens, which I would be happier with, rather than the then on both ends. Is that what the proposal is? That we? Sorry? Yeah.
That's not 100% clear to me.
Well, I mean, I got the impression from reading the objections that the proposal to reduce the 10 metres to 6 metres applied to Banbury Gardens.
Right.
I would be happier with that, but not reducing the 10 metres on the Chiltern Road side, which I think would be irresponsible. But
well, that would be fair enough. Yeah.
So if you're proposing that, I would be happy to say
a compromise of their compromise, effectively.
If that's what, yeah.
But,
Councillor
Chair,
Barnett.
if you don't mind, but I would suggest that the alternative is that this gets pulled out of the programme and then goes back round and consults on a different thing. So I'm happy to support the ward councillors either way, but I think those are our two options. Obviously, I would suggest we don't approve it as it is proposed because of the level of objection and the size of the road. So, but happy to support either taking it completely out and reconsulting, or arbitrarily, perhaps as far as the officers would say, reducing Banbury Road. Although I think knowing the road, I think that would address some resident concerns. And
is there scope for it to come back then quite quickly?
But from a resourcing perspective, it would have to go into the next programme and start again.
Right. So we'll have to defer it. Are you okay with that? Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Good job. Right. The next we have is Coley Portway Close. Have I gone past? Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Prior Avenue, is that okay, Caversham? Are you in support for that? Yeah. Portway Close, which is in support with that one? Yeah. Good.
Yes, I'm in full support of getting a report back from them.
Next one we have is Emma Green. It's a restriction for payment. Are we in support with that? Agreement with that? Yep.
Yeah, ward councillors happy with that.
Okay, fine, thank you. And Emma Green again, Rosendale Road, ward councillors happy with that? Yep. Yep. Thank you. Next one we have is Kates Grove, Bolton Road, request for double yellow within. Support with that? Kates Grove? Free in support. Vaughan Avenue, again in Case Grove, support. Yeah. Kentwood and Tallis, Armour Road, in support for request for restrictions. Support for that?
Yeah, support here as well, thank you.
Norcourt, Stoneham Close, councillors, support? Yeah. Redlands, Alexander Road, 3 for support for that one? Yeah. Redlands, again, Cardarwen Place. This is to double yellow lines to request. There's support for that one, councillor? Yeah. Redlands, Carnarvon Road and Devolvey Road Junction. This is a request by ward councillors. So in support for that one, councillor? Agreed, good. Right. Southcote, Circuit Lane, Councillor Ennis, this is the one you want to speak on.
I am, I'm waiting for my moment.
Yeah.
Drop
moment.
this one due to objections.
Sorry, yeah, there's 9 objections, 3 in support.
Yeah, but we did a leaflet out there and there's lots of people who are they're not happy. So we'd like to drop that one. No
So you want to
action.
drop that one? Withdraw that one.
Withdraw, and I've
Yeah.
got formal words for the second one.
Okay.
Should we move on?
Yeah. We'll move on.
Silchester Road.
Silchester Road.
As you can see, there's a number of objections for.
17 objection for.
Well, but if you look at it, it's different. You know, actually, people are objecting to the actual lines as well as objecting to reducing the lines. And because there's a number of people who've objected that are directly affected by some of the lines, we'd like to have a formal words for the minutes to move forward, if that's all right, Chair James. Yep, Andrew. So it's remove less of the restriction on the southern side of Silchester Road than in the consultation by retaining the double yellow lines from the junction of Circuit Lane up to and including the driveway access of 2 Silchester Road, and that's the Charing Court Flats. There's been objections from people like number 4 that's directly affected, and that's why we'd like to reduce the southern side of Silchester Road lines to include the driveway of Silchester Road.
Mr. Penman, you know.
If you want me to come out the morning you're doing it, I've got a yellow jacket and I can help you as well for no further pay.
That's very kind. We might take you up on that. So it's just to clarify that it's difficult with double negatives, isn't it? So we're reducing the amount that we're reducing the double yellow lines by, yes, so that it's only taken back to the driveway of number 2.
That's right, up to and including to Silchester and Charing, which is Charing Court Flats. So we are reducing the reduction. You're right. Is that okay? I can forward you the email. I mean, this is due to the, is that all right? I'll forward you the email, Andrew.
So we can make these amendments, Councillor Ennis, and continue with this.
Yeah.
You and support.
Yeah. There's been lots of consultation involvement, so we want to get it right for the people of Silchester Road. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Whitley Street, Durham Close. Are we 1 objection, 2 support? Yeah?
Happy with that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Whitley again, Shirley Avenue, 1 objection, 2 support. Are you happy with that?
More than happy with that one. Thank you.
Councillor, thank you. That concludes that Appendix 1, and we'll move on to an Appendix 2. Now, I'm going to take this by all ward. We got 4 in Abbey. Councillor Page, Friar Street, Russell Street, are you happy with those?
Yeah, Chair, can I welcome the comments that officers have made in respect of the first one on Friar Street. Friar Street is probably the hardest street on which to juggle all the competing demands of the shops, servicing, the pubs and clubs, public transport, hackney carriages, cyclists, disabled interests, and therefore the review that is proposed, or this more holistic approach, is one I very much welcome, and the point that is made there, all the loading bays are for all loading activities and not single business or development specific, and that's an important, but nonetheless Friar Street is very important and will become increasingly so as the Station Hill development and other major developments proceed. So I very much welcome that, and we as Abbey Councillors support the other schemes mentioned, the proposals. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Next one we have is in Battle 3, which is Belmont Road, Connaught. I know Councillor Hacker's.
Thank you, Chair. It's just really, we're happy with, sorry, you really should wear glasses and denying it, Elm Park and Loverock Road. But I just want to say a few words about the resident survey for Belmont and Connaught Road. Gosh, it's deeply frustrating what's happening in this area. Residents have been in contact. Ironically, the residents' parking and the basic parking situation around the area hasn't really changed much in the last few years. However, it's clearly the pressures on these parking spaces are increasing. I do know that enforcement is happening in the area because every year we get the stats. I look at the stats. Belmont's actually usually in the hundreds of tickets given out. So people are clearly abusing this residents' parking area. There is a particular establishment, a takeaway, that I have seen with my own eyes because I live in the area as I drive past, blatantly parking on the double reds. And I don't know what we can do to stop these companies or these people from abusing the residents' parking system. Whether or not they're making so much money that they can just pay off the fines left, right and centre and it's not a problem and they're happy to take that hit, I don't know. So I will happily work with officers to try and get a solution to this, because we all know that a close result is always a contentious result. I think if 50% of the residents in those two streets aren't happy with what's happening, we do need to look at that and do something about it. Whether or not we go further and start looking at the whole residents' parking area, I know some people are suggesting we remove the 2-hour parking in for non-residents entirely. Equally, there's some people who are happy with it is. So can we please, get a meeting and talk about what we can do, and specifically talk about what we can do with businesses that repeatedly flout the parking regulations in quite a blatant manner. I did once tweet them and it stopped for about 3 weeks and they went straight back to it. So if we can set up a meeting as soon as possible and see what can be done about this. Basically, is a disrespect, isn't it, for residents and their rights to park in their street by these people. So mixed feelings about the officer recommendation, but really very keen to try and find something we can do going forward to stop this happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Penman, do you want to comment on that?
No, absolutely, we'll make that happen. We'll bring in our civil enforcement team as well, so we're all at the table.
Right, thank you. We'll move to the next item, which is Caversham. We have 5 in Caversham, Anglefield Road, Lower Henley Road, Priestdale.
Yeah, we're fine with those. And in particular, the Hemdean Road one is something that we suggested after comments from the school and from residents. So we're interested to see what the officer suggestions are, basically, especially based on the fact that there is also this the potential for a disabled parking bay and how that would fit.
You got that? Thank you. Right. Next we got 2 in Church Ward, which is Byron Close and Christchurch Road.
Yeah, I don't have any objections to those, Chair. I am slightly concerned about be interesting to see what the result of the consultation is on Byron Close, because certainly the houses on one side, most of them they have stepped access, so a lot of them don't have garages. I'm not aware of a problem there, but I'd be interested to see what the results of the consultation are. Yes, the Christchurch Road one, I think is technically in Catesgrove actually, but yes, in favour of given that we're putting a cycle lane in there, of changing the alignment of parking at those shops. And I have no objection whatsoever to incorporating a disabled parking bay.
James, you got that? Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, my apologies, committee. I've jumped a bit further ahead. There's two in Caversham. One in Caversham Heights, which I've jumped on. Mr. Gurney Close, request for restriction on Gurney Close. Is the councillors happy with that?
More than happy. Thank you, Chairman. Yes.
Thank you. All right, the church is done. Okay, James. Yeah. We've got 5 items in Coley, which is Carsdale Close, Lawn Street, Brownlow Road, Lesford Road, and Matler.
Yes, for more.
Are we happy with that,
Councillor? After
Keating?
consultation with residents, very happy with those. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. The next, we have 3 in Emma Green, Armsdale Drive, Kendall Avenue, and Grove Road.
Thank you, Chair. Yep, all eminently sensible, particularly the Goldsworthy Drive, Kendall Avenue. The parking there there are lots of blind corners in Goldsworthy. We've had requests for yellow lines in the past approved. So all 3 of these, Grove with school safety being an issue as well, fully endorse these. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. You got those, yeah. Well, next we have 2 in Case Grove, Charndale Case Grove, and Dorothy Street. Happy with those? Agreements with those? Yeah. Okay. Moving on to next Kentwood, which we have 4 in Armour Hill, Benthurst Road, and Kentwood, Norcote Road, also Wild Rise. Are we happy with the restrictions?
Very happy to see those implemented.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Next one we have is Norcote, Shaftesbury Road. Yeah, happy with those. Yeah. The next 3 have in Parkward, Cholmondeley, Crescent Road, and Palmer Park. Are you okay with those, Councillor White? Excellent. And Redlands again, Christchurch Road. I think we've done that one, maybe. Yeah. Eldon Terrace, Granby Gardens. We okay with those ones, councillors? Yep. We have next 2 in Southcote, Liebenhood Road, and Ruman Street. Councillor Ennis.
Yep, Chair. Happy with just see how it goes in the Ruman Street with the consultation in that area. And the question about Liebenwood Road is to review waiting restrictions. You know, can we have discussions about that? We want to go for it because we've had a number of residents who are really unhappy with some of the events that are practically parked everywhere and anywhere and had some trouble, which we've inquired about. So go for the consultation, but will there be a list of what residents can go for on that consultation?
Mr. Penman.
We can only consult on one proposal because we're consulting on a proposed traffic regulation order. So when we're consulting, we're actually proposing to put the restriction in and seeking objections. So what we'll do after this is engage with you. We'll get some designs together and we'll bring a recommendation back to, I think it'll be January's subcommittee that we'll be going forward with. So there should be an opportunity to do some informal engagement with residents potentially before that meeting.
Sounds good to me.
Okay with those, yes. Thank you, Councillor Ennis. Next 3 items we have in Thames Ward, which is Kennetside, Mill Road, Berry Place. Councillor Barnett Ward.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We're happy for these to move forward. And I just clarify with Barry Place that what the proposal looked into would be to add it into the existing permit zone that it's on the edge of, not to create a. It's a little bit ambiguous in the comment here. We're not talking about the Barry Place residence parking zone.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, just to be absolutely clear, yes, we believe those properties have actually got eligibility for permits anyway, but there are no permit parking restrictions on the street. So this is bringing in some of the housing lands. So we've been working with them, some of the areas where we have indiscriminate parking taking place to manage that. So it will be within the existing and adjoining zone.
All right, thank you. Councillor Page?
Just to piggyback on that, as you and I represented that area for many years, I'm glad Mr. Penman clarified. Firstly, it's to include Barry Place within the adjoining Cardiff Road, Swansea Road scheme. When the scheme originally came in, a majority of residents of Barry Place opposed being included in the residents parking scheme. It was many years ago, and obviously things have changed. The other thing that has changed is that there is an area of housing land on the corner where Cardiff and Swansea Road meet. There's a large area of housing land that housing no longer require, and certainly don't want to build houses on, even though we originally pressed that as an option. And that could and should be included for residents parking. And I think if that were made clear to residents of Barry Place, it would make it a more sellable proposition as well as to other local residents, because it offers a net gain in terms of potential parking space properly managed. So it's something that can be a winner for you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, you got those? Yeah, points noted. Right, fine, thank you. Next we got is two in Tylers, Chapel Hill and Norcourt Road.
Yeah. Chapel Hill, that sounds like a good one. That does often have issues with lack of visibility and parking. On the Norcourt Road one, I would like more information about it, because it talks about changing the parking bays, and it says about a second request of something applying to the bay west of Bundles Road, but doesn't specify what. Also, in light of when we approved the zebra crossing on Norcourt Road, a lot of the objectors were worried about losing parking bays. So I just want to make sure I have more details of that. So I'd like to see more information before saying yes to it, really. Thank you.
Mr. Penn.
Thank you. We've tried to leave addresses off, but the situation's the same actually, which is why they were added to the same line. So these are both situations where the bay is going across a driveway that has an access protection marking. So the requests are to reduce the bay so that it no longer goes across those driveways. So theoretically, the only people it should be affecting are visitors to that property who will no longer be able to overspill onto the carriageway and block themselves in, but nobody else should be blocking that access point.
And is that the case for both of these requests that are given?
It is. It's the same, just two different locations. So same situation, but two slightly different
Then
locations.
if that's the case, I'm happy to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Last three in Whitley, Blandford Road, junction with Meadowcroft and Foxays, and Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Chair. A comment on each, if I may. Blandford Road, junction with Meadowcroft. Pleased with that one, that we're going to have a look at the junction with parking. I think it's more to do with the school issue in the morning and Exbourne Road, you know, around busy times, which I've spoken with James about earlier. The Fox Hayes, it's more to do with pavement parking in the northeast corner and the east side of Fox Hayes, rather than the whole sort of circumference of it. I've got a declaration of interest with Milam, considering I live there, but it was raised by a fellow ward colleague, and I personally don't have any problem with large white vans, but my residents do, so I'm happy to go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, that's that. Good. All right, moving on to item 7 on page 137. Result of statutory consultation in Sidmouth Street, active travel. James.
Thank you. So this report follows the report to the last meeting in June, where we sought agreement to go out to statutory consultation on the proposal to retain as a permanent feature the two-way segregated cycle lane that's on Sidmouth Street. So the report brings back the results of that consultation and some analysis for a decision. The recommendation from officers is to proceed with sealing the traffic regulation order.
Right. Councillor Page, you indicated.
Chair, thank you. And can I thank Mr. Penman and colleagues for a very thorough report that picks up and analyses the substantial number of comments that we've received. I would just initially make the point that by way of reminding colleagues that this scheme came about at the start of the COVID pandemic, when the government offered local authorities such as Reading funding to introduce more active travel and cycling schemes. But that funding came with a specific instruction from the Department for Transport that these schemes were to be introduced via a temporary traffic regulation order procedure, which obviated the need for any prior consultation. And that was the condition upon which we introduced a number of schemes in Reading, including the Sidmouth Street scheme. One of the schemes we introduced did not find favour and was rapidly withdrawn in Caversham, but the others, including this, were introduced and have been, in my opinion, successful and a good building block upon which to expand cycling in Reading. But what we are having now is the retrospective consultation to a scheme that was never consulted upon originally. That's regrettable because Reading has always prided itself on not only informal but formal consultations. And so much was the blowback from other parts of the country that the DFT, in the form of Grant Shapps, did one of many volte-face and then not only criticised councils for not having consulted, following their own guidance, but then went back and said how important it was that we consulted on such schemes. Anyway, we are where we are, and we've gone out to consult on a short stretch of segregated cycleway, introduced to the new high standards required of any new cycleway, and that they have to be segregated. And I commend the government for having adopted an approach that where they are funding schemes, they require schemes of a high quality and a standard that will last, and not just white paint on a road, which has substantially been what we've had before from the DFT. And so Sidmouth Street was implemented to those high standards. It's a two-way segregated cycleway, but regrettably, of course, it is relatively short. And what we have seen in the responses overwhelmingly, and understandably, most of the respondents are probably not even aware of the existence of the document that's referred to in this report, namely the local cycling, walking and infrastructure plan. There are colleagues on this council who should be aware, some of them sitting behind me, who choose to ignore it and the fundamental purpose that that plan represents, and that is to show how we wish to deliver an expanded cycle network throughout Reading and thereby encourage a transfer from private car to cycling and walking. And this link, this short but important link, is one that we have every intention on building on, quite literally, at both ends. And the junction with Queen's Road represents a challenge. And I'm aware that Councillor White and other colleagues have asked for estimates as to the sorts of cost for modifications at that junction to make it more cycle friendly. And that work has simply not been done in the absence of funding for that scheme. But what we do have is a well-established link along Kennetside and also a likely scheme to come along the London Road. We already have a shared facility on the pavement, but we would like to deliver a proper segregated route along the London Road, and there's every chance that we can secure government funding because we are promised further bidding opportunities. Reading has been very successful because of our delivery record in securing funding from the government. Shinfield Road is actually underway in terms of approvals and the construction work over the next few months. Castle Hill and Bath Road has received funding, and we're doing the appropriate consultation. And having spoken to DfT officials recently, as have our officers, they are keen to support Reading in further expanding those cycling opportunities. And certainly the London Road and Kennet side and building on the Sidmouth Street link is a very important one. And therefore the paragraph on page 138 quite rightly says it now has the increasing potential to be a key rather than a K link to the existing and future cycle network expansion set out in the local cycling walking infrastructure plan and the bus service improvement plan. And indeed the BSIP, the bus service improvement plan, offers funding for new bus lanes along the London Road, which could also be used by cyclists, and whilst they would not be segregated at this stage, they would also be a further building block for further funding bids. I would, Chair, also draw attention to the LC Whip appendix, and I would refer colleagues specifically to a Schedule G, which lists in great detail priority schemes, including addressing the inner distribution road and the need for crossing enhancements to main and side roads such as Sidmouth Street, and a recognition that this is a high priority. And in terms of the schemes assessed, it's, I think, about the fifth or sixth priority. So I can assure colleagues that if, as I hope we will agree, the officer recommendation this evening, we will take forward a scheme that can rapidly be built upon with those adjoining links. And indeed, a number of the comments received and referenced on page 141 were from people looking forward to there being better connections to the network in the future. And that is precisely what we are looking to deliver. We have a plan. It's far from cunning. It's very transparent, and one that was based upon work with the cycling campaign, with other interested parties, with pedestrians as well, and has stood us in good stead in bidding for government funds, as I am sure we will be in a position to do. I think the reverse would apply, however, if we were misguided enough to remove the Sidmouth Street cycle lane. It would shred our credibility nationally at a time when we are in a very strong position to take forward further bidding opportunities. But because a large number of people have misunderstood the context, and I'm not criticising them for not having read the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, but I am criticising colleagues on this council who deliberately and willfully choose to mislead people through social media and other opportunities, and deliberately refuse to accept that we have a plan, that it inevitably will be incremental by virtue of the funding that we receive from central government, but that Sidmouth Street and the standard of scheme that we have there offers us a good opportunity to bid successfully for further funds that will then link it in and be demonstrably part of a very important cycle network locally. So, Chair, I would move the recommendations as printed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor White, you indicated.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am a cyclist. I cycled here tonight, and I want a decent joined up cycle network in Reading. If Greens were running the council, we wouldn't have put the Sidmouth Street scheme in. We would have spent the money joining up and improving the cycle network elsewhere. What's there isn't joined up. It is a cycle lane to nowhere. It is duplicating Watlington Street, which is nearby, parallel. It's a quiet road. You can cycle down there. It's lovely. And it is already joined up to the Kennet side. even when Sidmouth Street is joined up, if it ever is, I think Watlington Street will still be preferred by the majority. One of the objectives of the scheme was to support social distancing, and with such low numbers of cyclists, at least it has met this objective. As Councillor Tony Page said, the council were told by the government not to consult on the schemes at the time. However, they could have talked to key stakeholders outside of the council to help decide on the schemes to progress. I will be abstaining on this one, and Green councillors will be continuing to lobby for a decent joined up cycle network.
Thank you. Councillor White, Councillor Barnett Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I attended the CAST forum last week where we discussed the responses to this consultation. We spent a lot of time on it. It was actually really disappointing, Chair, that only Labour members turned up to that meeting and that none of the opposition members of CAST turned up. And I think if they had, they would have a much better understanding of where residents are on this issue. What we found during that discussion was similar to what we can see here, which is that there are objections which result from the willful misrepresentation of this council's ambitions and of this scheme by the Reading Green Party, again, who are again refusing to show leadership and vision on active travel. I cannot believe that I have just heard a Green councillor arguing that we should ration cycle schemes in East Reading. That because cyclists can cycle on the road in between parked cars on Watlington Street, that they therefore don't deserve a proper segregated cycle lane. I had to write it down because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The vision that we have here is we've taken the opportunity that we have. We are in a situation where we cannot fund cycle infrastructure out of our own budgets. We are at the mercy of the government, and we have to do the best we can with what they give us. We know what a Labour council can do given sufficient funding. Waltham Forest and East London got £27 million. They have delivered fantastic walking and cycling infrastructure. If we had funding on that scale, we could do the same and in the same amount of time, but that's not what we have. We have small pieces of funding that we have to knit together based on our bigger plan, which is within the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. Back in, well, I don't know when the planning started, but it was open to 2014, 2015, long before I was on this council. We had Christchurch Bridge. And I remember as a resident, all of the debates around Christchurch Bridge. People said they're connecting a park to an alley. What's the point of that? It's a waste of money. But because we've got Christchurch Bridge, we've been able to insist on walking and cycling infrastructure through the SSE site. Because we've got Christchurch Bridge, we've been able to secure a tiger crossing across Gosbrook Road. Because we've got Christchurch Bridge, later on in this meeting, we're looking at allowing cycling through the underpass. Because we've got Christchurch Bridge, Station Hill developers who wanted to ban cycling through it are now permitting cycling through Station Hill because there is a vision, and that vision started with a bridge that people said was a bridge to nowhere. And now, yet again, we have people claiming that the key link in a chain is a link to nowhere just because we haven't got the money to do it all at once. It is disgraceful that a party that supposedly supports active travel will go for the populist Trumpian option of misrepresenting what this council is trying to do. So unsurprisingly, I will be supporting this tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Next, quiet councillors, please. Can you order, please? Yeah. Next we have is Councillor Canal.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not quite sure how to follow that. But I'm not going to have a pop at Councillor White. Councillor White is indeed right. It does have low usage, and it's currently a cycle path to nowhere. It has a beginning, it has an end along South Street. But as Councillor Page has said, this is just a small part of a larger vision. So hopefully that would improve usage. We will be supporting the officer recommendation. I will just highlight on page 142, other points of note, the suggestion that the cycle lane be narrower to allow 2 lanes of traffic heading the other way. If that were ever to happen, I would be truly delighted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Next was Councillor Paul Gitting.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm speaking as Chair of the Strategic Environment Planning and Transport Committee, where some of these schemes obviously come through for initial recommendations and initial go-aheads, and also as Chair of the CAST Forum, which Councillor Barnett Ward just referred to, and also Chair of the Cycling Forum. And I can say, sort of trying to represent the views of that committee, and particularly the CAST Forum, actually, once Councillor Barnett Ward gave a very lucid explanation as to why it's important in terms of the sort of funding opportunities that come from putting in these schemes and the sort of linkage that might come for it. So there was general support for it. I have to say, I find it slightly ironic that we're talking about a cycling scheme and we've got support for it from the Conservative Council, a little bit half-hearted, but nonetheless welcome support, and an abstention effectively against from a Green councillor. I mean, I find that absolutely baffling. I think it's also worth pointing out, and it's also for members of the public that objected and probably don't understand some of the original rationale behind these schemes, but the cost of this original scheme in Sidmouth Street to Reading Council and Reading Council taxpayers is absolutely next to nothing, minimal, because the scheme was fully funded by the Department of Transport as part of that emergency tranche 1 funding. And although Councillor White said we might, have talked to the Cycle Forum and talked to the cycle campaigners, this was a very quick decisions were needed during the height of the COVID pandemic on these schemes, and we took advice from the council officers, and also the scheme was fully supported by the Department of Transport, and I'm presuming that there are some experts on travel in the Department of Transport. And as Councillor Page alluded to in his opening remarks, the cost to the council's reputation for active travel of ripping out a model two-way cycle scheme, a model two-way cycle scheme, and it is a model two-way cycle scheme, would be absolutely immense. And I'm sure, actually, if you talk about social media, that it would soon be occupying lots of what Councillor Page called the Twitter sphere of the scheme being ripped out by whoever was doing it, by contractors on the day, ripping out a two-way cycle scheme that has tremendous potential for linkage. And without getting the approval of the Department of Transport for our overall work, we won't get the money to get the linkage to put in for the scheme that we're talking about here, but for also schemes that Councillor Barnett Ward is talking about, or as part of the LC Whip, and actually schemes along the Kidmore Road when we had the earlier petitioner. Those type of schemes need to be funded, and if our credibility is in tatters with the Department of Transport for ripping out a perfectly well thought out, very good set of proposals which can be linked to the BSIP bus plan and also to the Kennet side, we would be laughed out of court. So obviously I fully support this, and I find it very disappointing that a party that prides itself on the environment and active travel can't find their way to support it either.
Thank you, Councillor Gitting. Councillor Moore, you indicated as well.
Thank you. I'd just like to come back on something Councillor Barnett Ward said about no opposition councillors attending the cast. There are no listed meetings on the council website. I did not receive any agenda. I did not receive an invite. I didn't receive any details. And I sent an inquiry when I was elected asking when these meetings would be taking place across the municipal year, and I did not receive a response. So I would say if you want to criticise opposition councillors for not attending, they do actually need to know about those meetings in the first place. Thank you.
Okay, right, councillors, I think we noted and we take those points on board. So can we now move on? All right.
Additional point. I agree with my colleagues that it is interesting that Councillor White identified the problem of lack of linkage as part of his speech. But as a candidate in Redlands Ward, I was completely unaware of any Green support for the London Road scheme, which received 60% or around that figure support from the general public when that scheme was consulted upon. I think the bigger picture has been alluded to by my colleagues. It's this, our priority has got to be to reduce air pollution and improve safety for children in particular. I would just want to highlight one aspect of this scheme which I will be supporting, which is that in section 4.2 of the report, it identifies that the scheme as is suboptimal and that it will look at safety enhancements. I'd want to make sure that those are considered, perhaps not in this round of implementing the scheme, but certainly at a later stage, to ensure that some of the suggestions, for example, in the technical note on page 217, are considered as part of that review. I just wanted that to be taken on board as part of the approval of the overall scheme. But I completely agree with the stance taken by my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. No, I don't see any more indications, so can we move forward to the recommended action in page 137, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. Does the committee agree to those? And Councillor White, you wish to abstain from the, yeah, can that be noted, please? Yeah, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 8, railway station subway proposal to work population cycling. James, are you representing this one?
Thank you, Chair. So it's been a long-standing desire, certainly for the Reading Cycle Campaign and cyclists in general, to be able to use this expeditious link from the north to the south side of Reading Station. We've got upcoming works to resolve some of the height issues that are currently in place due to the suspended ceiling. And in parallel to that, we'd like to seek agreement to go out to statutory consultation to revoke the current prohibition of cycling under the station subway and to create a shared use footway cycleway on that link. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. Councillor Page, you indicated.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. As someone who's been involved with the station regeneration project for best part of 20 years, one of the hardest nuts that we had to crack was the future of this subway, because in the early days, Network Rail wanted to close it. So that was the starting point, and we made it quite clear that that was not negotiable. The subway would remain, and the DFT, to their credit, also recognised that it was simply not practical or desirable to close that tunnel. But from the word go, we had real difficulties around the tunnel because it was not ours in the first place. It was, for those of you with a long memory, you will remember, of course, that it was a subway that served the not only the platforms, but you went all the way through to get to the good old Red Star parcel office and various others, and you could actually get all the way through to the Caversham Road at one stage. But incrementally that was reduced, and but the needs for the future of Reading were such that, and again, it goes back to the vision point that Councillor Barnett Ward referenced. We knew about Station Hill, we knew about the future redevelopment of the Royal Mail site, and we knew that it would be fundamentally important to have this link. So regrettably, we accepted a substandard subway as handed over to us. The best we got out of Network Rail was that colourful 2 or 3 tone tiling in the subway and the recessed bricks that are on one side. And that was seen by Network Rail as a major concession. So from the word go, it was never regarded as adequate. We were sold a complete pup in terms of the ceiling, because I remember long discussions by Pat Baxter, involving Pat Baxter, whom many of you will remember, with officers about the need, if the ceiling was going to be that low, it had to be of a solid material. And what happened? We got effectively Baco foil hanging on that subway that a little finger could press. It's been subject to constant vandalism ever since. So Network Rail did us no favours whatsoever in what we were obliged to accept. So it's catch up and it's improvement, and that's what this represents. Again, it's not ideal, and the issues of ceiling height, whilst it will be raised, it's still not ideal. But I would make the point that even a cyclist of my height standing up on his or her bicycle will be able to cycle safely through there. I think you'd have to be of sort of 2.3 or 4 meters high on a bicycle to come anywhere close to it. So that issue will be addressed. There will be improved lighting. And again, it's a shared facility. And I know as part of this, and we are going out to consult, remember, we aren't deciding the final details, but as part of the consultation, there will be legitimate concerns raised by pedestrians about cycling speed. There is, of course, the now constant problem of the illegal electric scooters that will be going through there at high speed, and that's a separate debate. We won't start that tonight, but the management of traffic through there, the vast majority of cyclists are responsible, but there will be some who will need to be challenged, and indeed we will need to design the scheme in the best way possible to not only advertise the fact that cyclists are going through there, but also encourage them to cycle responsibly. But at the moment, this is a consultation to establish a missing link, and we've been talking about them before. It is a nonsense. It will be a nonsense to proceed with Station Hill, with the northern developments, and still pretend that it is realistic or desirable to ban cycling through this important link. And we recognised some years ago when we agreed to the ban that would be something that would need to be reviewed. Now is the time to review it, with Station Hill forging ahead, with applications granted in outline on the north side, and as Councillor Barnett-Ward rightly reprised very succinctly, the presence of Christchurch Bridge, the opening up of the SSE site, whether we win or lose the appeal, there will be a development on that site. And so this is an important missing link that needs to be put in place. So I commend the recommendation, Chair. I look forward to the comments and the consultation, which will no doubt elicit probably as many as we had on the previous item, but nonetheless, part of our role as local decision makers is to take difficult decisions, to make the best of the situation. We can't rebuild the tunnel, much as I would like to, and we have to make the best of this. So I would move this, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Page. Councillor Moore, you indicated.
Thank you, Chair. This is very timely. I was at the Reading Cycle Campaign AGM some weeks ago, and one of the things they wanted was indeed this. So really good timing. I think it's a really good idea. It's been long a frustration of residents that it's for various reasons that Councillor Page already said. The one thing I do want to say, and this will hopefully be illuminated in the consultation anyway, is that there really needs to be really safe segregated pedestrian and cycle access. I think that's a lot of residents contacted me. I think out of everything on the agenda tonight, this is the one thing I got the most contacts about. Now, I'm sure that will all happen. It'll be great, but I just really want to make sure that that is really highlighted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett-Ward.
Thank you, Chair. I think there are probably officers in this meeting who remember when I was a newly minted councillor and vice chair of SEPT in probably June 2018 was the first time I went to one of Councillor Page's briefings, and I said, why can't people cycle through the subway of the railway? And I have asked at every second meeting ever since. I've been very careful not to ask at every meeting, so in case I got thrown out. But I have been pressing on this for a long time. I have known the challenges around it for a long time. Officers have been very helpful in explaining the issues there. And I thought about it as I headed into the town centre this morning. I go through that subway most days. I got off my bicycle. I pushed my bicycle. Another cyclist cycled through slowly and considerately. And I thought, actually, I am more of an obstacle than he is, because I am taking up more space in this tunnel because I'm pushing my bike next to me. And people are cycling through. People are going to cycle through it. People don't understand why they can't. But problem with the restriction at the moment, it means that we can't tell people how to cycle through considerately. We can't inform pedestrians of how that this is a shared space and how to make sure everyone's safe. I would be very surprised if it was possible to physically segregate through that subway. I think it's too narrow. Officers will know better than I do. But what we certainly can do is look into imposing speed limits, look into reminders of share with care, clarity on who takes precedence, and a reminder that this is a shared space. And we know that this can work safely because an awful lot of people are cycling through there already safely and considerately. Some people are cycling through inconsiderately and causing problems, and actually it may feel counterintuitive to residents, and I do hope we don't have anyone misrepresenting the proposal in social media, but actually allowing it gives us more control over how people do it.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Green councillors support allowing cycling in the Reading Station subway. I remember when this scheme went in, when the subway opened, Greens supported the cycle campaign in arguing for cycling in the underpass to be allowed. At the time, I remember council officers and Labour councillors saying, no, not possible. So glad that a U-turn has been performed on this. It's one small step towards a decent joined up cycle network. Maybe it's time to look at allowing cycling along the length of Broad Street again while we are on a roll. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Cornell.
Thank you, Chairman. We'll be supporting this as well. This is a case of shutting, or perhaps more aptly opening the stable door after the horses bolted. I didn't realise cycling was banned through the subway whenever I've passed through. I've met cyclists, but I support what Councillor Barnett-Ward said about a segregated cycle lane would be preferable if there's space. Or was it? In that case, I will rightly credit Councillor Moore. It's good that the Greens support below ground cycling, even if they don't like it on ground level. And the fact it's going to be looking a lot better is a vast improvement. This is the first sight some people get of Reading, and it could quite easily be their last. I could quite imagine people taking one look down there and jumping back on a train. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Paul Gitting.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Chairman. I think we're all thankfully all supporting this proposal. And I said earlier, Councillor Barnett-Ward made the point about linkage, and I do bikeability training for children and take many a school sort of from north of the river over the wonderful Christchurch Bridge, and then you go across after going through the SSE part of the and go over the IDR, cycle up, and then you say to the children, there's a no cycling sign, you've got to get up and walk, and they look at you and they say, no, we have to get off and walk through here. And it just seems absurd. You know, a lovely non-traffic route into town with this ludicrous interruption. And so Councillor White is correct. I mean, I think the cycle campaign have long wanted this to happen, but as Councillor Page pointed out, there were some legal restrictions around that to do with the height. I mean, it does seem that you'd have to be a sort of small giraffe to be in problem cycling through there, but it's not quite as easy as that and also so there has been vandalism to the roof and other aspects of the tunnel. So I think we do need to get that right. And as Councillor Barnett will point out as well, there are some antisocial cycling electric bikes going through there a bit of a pace. So we need to be able to better regulate that by some signage and also perhaps some enforcement once this goes in. But hopefully people will go through their responsibilities they're doing already, and that important linkage can be put in place officially.
Thank you, Councillor Gating. Councillor Mitchell, were you indicating to speak?
Simply to endorse what Councillor Carnell was saying, this is self-evidently a good idea. Frankly, we should have taken this step long ago, but with the advent of Station Hill particularly, it absolutely makes sense. I would endorse what Councillor Moore and Councillor Barnett Ward said about signage. If segregation isn't possible, at least it needs to be clearly laid out that bikes will be coming through so that we don't have any untoward accidents. But other than that, it's self-evidently a cycle-friendly space and it should be used as such. So we fully endorse this.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Ling.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, of course I'll support this. Everybody else seems to be taking some credit for it, so I'll mention that. I've raised this at a planning applications committee, and it's in the minutes, so I was one of the first to log it as well. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, if there's no more indications, then we move on to the recommended action on page 229. Committee with the agreement? Yeah, thank you. Right, that concludes that part of the meeting. The next part is private and confidential. So can I ask member of public? There is no press, so to leave the building because the next bit is private and confidential under the Government Act to leave. So can all the mics and everything be switched off, please? Thank you.